get foaming over medium heat. Make sure not to get your butter too hot, I'll explain why later. Once it's all melted and nice and bubbly, we're going to add our carrots. I got 1 pound of baby carrots here, and I'm going to start by just slow cooking them in the butter for 10 to 15 minutes until they just start to get a little soft. It's very important not to let the milk fats separate the way it does when you make brown butter, because then you'll have a watery, greasy liquid in the bottom of the pan instead of a nice cohesive sauce. And now to make the carrots interesting, I'm going to add a half cup of bourbon, which I'm going to flambe. Give that a little shake until all the fire goes away. And then I'm going to add maybe a 1/4 cup of orange juice for a little acidity and flavor. And to both help sweeten and thicken the sauce, I'm going to add 2 or 3 tablespoons of brown sugar. Then I'm just going to slowly stir and cook the carrots in this mixture until it reduces into a syrupy sweet glaze. When we get near the end of cooking, I'm going to add some freshly chopped thyme along with a few twists of freshly ground black pepper and a few sprinkles of freshly kosher to kosher salt. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm going to make sure not to let the butter brown, otherwise this is going to happen. It tastes good, but what you've essentially got here is carrots swimming in clarified butter, which, as one of my many culinary heroes would say, is not good eats. So make sure you regulate your temperature and slowly and gently cook the carrots until tender, sweet, and sticky. Now onto the peas, which we're going to parboil for 2 to 3 minutes or until just tender, and then we're going to immediately shock them in an ice bath. Bear in mind, this is if you're using fresh peas. If you're using frozen peas, you can skip directly to this step. After defrosting, I'm going to saute the peas in a little bit of butter. By a little bit, I mean like half a stick. About 10 seconds in, I'm going to remember that I wanted to saute a shallot first, so I'll just dump it in and hope you guys don't notice. And then we're cooking for another 2 to 3 minutes until the peas are nice and tender, at which point we're adding about 2 tablespoons of freshly chopped mint and the zest of 1 lemon. Give those guys a little toss at a little bit of heat just to let those flavors get to know each other. And then right at the end of cooking, of course, we're going to season with kosher salt and freshly ground pepper and keep these guys warm while we move on to cooking our steak, which, as you can see, is all nicely rested and requires another pat down with paper towels before being introduced to a ripping hot pan. Just looking to make sure it's hot, dropping our steaks in with a little bit of vegetable oil and letting them sear on both sides. We've made steaks every which way on this show, so I'm just going to breeze through this part. Suffice it to say, I pan-seared and then butter basted these steaks, searing about 4 minutes per side over medium-high heat, and then lowering the heat, adding some butter, and basting, repeating until the desired internal temperature of 130 degrees Fahrenheit was achieved. We are setting those aside to rest for 10 minutes and then making the pan sauce in said pan. I wiped out all that brown butter, leaving some of the fond in the bottom of the pot, and I'm adding about 1.5 tablespoons of our crushed peppercorns, which I'm just going to toast for like 20 to 30 seconds or so. I don't want to burn the fond. And then off heat, I'm adding about 1/3 cup of cognac, which I'm going to flame for little to no reason. There's no need to do this. Once the fire has abated, I'm going to add a few ladlefuls or about 1/2 cup's worth of beef stock that I have previously boiled down by half, if that makes any sense. I'm also adding about 1/2 cup of heavy cream. Then I'm going to keep simmering and tiny whisking this until it becomes a thick, luscious, unctuous, luxurious sauce that easily coats the back of a spoon. And because we're not skimping on the butter this episode, it's time to add some butter. 2 tablespoons that we're going to tiny whisk into the sauce off the heat, and then it's finally time to plate up. I've got my sliced up filet that I'm going to flank with our lemon mint peas and our bourbon carrots, and then I'm going to delicately sauce our filet. And finally, it's time to eat. The carrots are perfect, tender and sweet, and rich and sticky. The peas are bright and herbaceous and al dente and also perfect, and the steak en poivre is just one of the greatest things that you can possibly imagine. It is a clear and obvious entrant into the... Oh, wait a second, I can't finish this without a little bit of Glenmorangie Blue, which is not a real scotch, but I can only assume they mean Johnny Walker Blue Label. The things I have to do to be accurate on this show. For you guys, I will bite this bullet. And it's really tasty. It's not worth $200 a bottle, but I gotta say, it goes really, really well with steak au poivre. Archer might be an awful person, but the guy knows how to eat.
Better hire a recruit while you can. Better hire a recruit while you can.
By fate or fortune. fortune.
Your minions really pulled their weight.
Hey baby, I hear the blues are calling, toss salads and scrambled eggs.
And today we're going to be making actually the only recipe in my best-selling book, Eggs Woodhouse. And since I'm not a servant or a woman, the actual cooking is going to be done by celebrity chef Alan Brown.
Actually, it's Alton.
Not according to that.
Anyway, hi, Alton Brown here, and today we're doing a new take on the classic Eggs Benedict, and wow, this dish is like a cholesterol Katrina. It's got creamed spinach, bechamel, and hollandaise sauce, eggs, obviously, pata negra ham, half a cup of butter. So yes, it's delicious, but you should really save it for special occasions, like
This new holiday called Morning.
a pinch of paprika and some Kashmiri saffron. And there you have it, Eggs Woodhouse.
Thanks, Alan.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's time for another episode of Binging with Babish, where this week we're tackling maybe one of the most ridiculous and over-the-top recipes ever imagined, Eggs Woodhouse, a dish so opulent it's going to make me feel guilty well into next year. It seems only fitting that something good should come from something so indulgently evil, and that's why I'd love for you guys to check out this link where I've set up a fundraiser for our children's food pantry.